There's history in the textbooks, and then there's history that we live. History that's not always in the textbooks. In your educational systems, a lot of times there are decisions made about what parts of history that you include in the course of discussion, whether this be for elementary school, junior high, and even in the college ranks. So what ends up happening is there's often a great breadth of information that's not always shared. And that means it leaves it up to the individual to have to take it upon themselves to find out things. And a lot of times, those things are found out, not necessarily deliberately. It can be just found out through accident or just normal conversations with people who actually lived those experiences. Today, I'm going to share with you some history that I learned not in school, and from dealing with my family members, friends, and from my lived experience as well. If you're Generation X like me, that means you came behind a generation of people who lived through segregation at its height. If you lived in the South, Jim Crow laws was the norm, and unfortunately, most institutions, whether it be county, city, or even the state, separated education systems in terms of white, black, and white. So when I was growing up, I was aware of the fact that we had two black high schools, Merrill High School and Southeast High School, and we had one white high school, Pine Bluff High School. But the reality is that I didn't realize about about the school in particular, until I got to Southeast Junior High School, which was actually Southeast High School, and it had been converted. Because quite frankly, coming up through my educational system, there was actually no discussion of the fact that there were two black high schools in addition to a white high school. So during the course of my time, my education and the information that I received about the presence of these schools were limited to just my mother and my uncles and my loved ones sharing their experiences. The First Amendment guarantees you a right to freedom to assemble. And we oftentimes talk about the freedom to assemble whenever we're talking about marches, protests, or any type of group assembly intended to express our displeasure with something or just merely to exercise our particular voice. This is a right that's extended to all individuals. But taking it in context, it can be utilized in a manner that can be utilized to terrorize as well. When I was growing up, I used to see a lot of visual depictions of the Ku Klux Klan. And almost every one that I saw, you typically saw them in group gatherings, whether it be they were in town, basically protesting something, or they would be in large assemblies where they were out in open fields with burning crosses and individuals wearing sheets and robes. This is the normal representation that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have historically seen. So at setting the stage, you have the Klan rally that occurs. And then what they would routinely do is after the rally was occurring, they would march through black neighborhoods. But the thing that I found interesting was that I didn't learn about this until I got out of high school. It took conversations with loved ones to be informed that this was the way they terrorized. And understanding that that was a piece of history that was left out, it gave a greater degree of context when I see similar types of actions being done in modern times. So as opposed to treating it as an isolated incident, you have to now take in consideration from a historical standpoint, is this merely a continuation of a tactic that has been utilized over the last 100 years? "1965, my mom left Pine Bluff and attended Tuskegee Institute, Tuskegee University, great university in Alabama. Which brought me to an interesting thing where I asked her in the course of me taking some courses in school, hey, did you participate in the civil rights movement? To my surprise, she turns to me, she said, yeah, I actually participated in the march. So she's telling me how in the course of participating in this march, that she was approached by young men of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who are famously known for their efforts in voters registrations, voters drives, as well as the sit-ins. So in this particular day, the young men from this organization primarily were approaching young people, asking them to participate in a march on Montgomery. And of course, my mother participated. But the thing wasn't the march that caught my attention. It was the logistical instructions that she received in preparation for the march that kind of raised my ears a bit. So in order to go for the march, one of the things that she received was basically a briefing on how she needed to conduct herself so that this way she could participate in the march in a safe manner. Remember, this is a time where marches were nonviolent, but the mechanisms for breaking up those marches were very violent. So my mother was being informed of a few things. She was informed that when they marched, the men would march on the outside, women would march in the middle. She was informed that in the course of the march, violence was going to happen. She was told that they were going to either get water hoses, they were going to get dogs, they were going to have horseback riding policemen coming at them. It was going to happen. So she was then told that if that happens, what's going to happen is that the men will make a circle and the women will be in the middle. Fascinatingly enough, she said they stressed to them the importance that whatever happens, whatever that's being done, don't break out of the circle. If this were to occur, she was informed that as a collective unit, they were going to move to the nearest black church. Any black church? She said, yes, any black church. Because what she didn't know, what she was informed, was back during the Civil Rights Movement, black churches routinely left the doors of their churches unlocked so that if any protesters or marchers found themselves in trouble, they had a safe space they could go to weather the storm of the violence. Churches understood the importance of their role as a part of the logistical success of the nonviolent movement. And part of that success was recognizing that in order for people who were going to put themselves in harm's way, they had to have some place they could go that would give them some reasonable degree of safety. So here I am, and I am going from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, to go through basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And in the conclusion of basic training, in order for us to leave, we had one requirement. We had to wear our full dress uniform all the way back to our original home of port, duty station, whatever word you want to utilize. So my mom actually met me at the gate when I got there. So of course, here I am. I'm wearing my full Class A uniform. So as we pull into Pine Bluff, I'm getting ready for the fact that as soon as I get home, I'm getting out of this uniform. She turns to me again and she says, no, we got to stop and see your grandparents first. But when I walked through the door, the first thing after he smiled at me was to tell me, you know, I was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood. But I sit quietly as my grandfather shares story after story about what it's like for him to be in the military. But then it dawned on me as I was listening to him, he wasn't merely talking about what it was like to be in the military. He was talking about what it was like to be in a segregated military. Desegregation of the military didn't occur until after World War II. So that meant I was actually on a duty station that was segregated when my grandfather went there. A lot of times what happens when people are living history in real time, they don't appreciate it, and even you don't, until they casually mention something, which is exactly what my mom did with me. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, and she was a teacher for about 30 plus years because she started teaching, I want to say, around 73 or 74. I love when I have conversations with some of my elders and they always lead off with, did you know? Because in my mind, I'm like, no, I didn't. She's like, did you know that my class of teachers, meaning the teachers who taught with me during that year when I taught my first year as a kindergarten teacher, we were the first ones to teach an integrated class of kindergarten students. That means that generation, which probably was the class of 85 or class of 86, and then my class were the first generation of students to come through an entire K through 12 in a desegregated, integrated environment. My mother often asks me the question why I'm always so enamored to ask questions about her past and what she went through as it relates to her and as it relates to me. And I have to remind her of two very important points. One, in painting the discussion and the contextual narrative of our country and the history of our country, I often have concerns that if you leave out parts of history, you don't have a full and enriched view of history as a whole. History is not supposed to be good, bad, ugly, or pretty. It's just history. It's designed to give you a clear picture and allow you to make an informed decision so that you can, one, learn from the lessons of the past and ensure those things don't happen in the future. But a lot of times, those impactful parts of history get left out when we don't present a greater and fuller picture, and we only want to provide snapshots and leave it up to people to fill in the blanks. But the other reason why is because with each passing day, the stewards of that old history pass on. And every story that comes with them, the serving in the military in a segregated military, Klan marching through black neighborhoods, being the first integrated kindergarten teacher, all of those stories are things that need to be passed on because we are quickly coming to a point that the people who live those experiences are leaving us. And if they take those stories with them to the beyond, we'll never be able to share them with the next generation. And most importantly, they'll never be able to share it with every generation behind them. So if you've got loved ones, you still have some baby boomer relatives out there, Generation X relatives like myself and so forth, if you have relatives who have those stories that they can share, capture them, record them, share them, so that we can all benefit from the fact that we all have a common connection. We have history together. And whether we like it or not, every piece of history that we have, that we've gone through collective, is shared history. And it should never be selectively eliminated for the benefit of any one group or the other. It should be embraced by all so that we can learn from that history, give reverence to those people, and give acknowledgement to the people who trailblazed through that history, and can provide guidance so that we can make sure we don't make any of the mistakes that was made in the past.